Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around fantasy Premier League. My name is Suj.
And my name is James.
3 more game weeks to go.
Yeah. Is it over yet?
I felt this morning like coming into work, I was up bright and early. I saw it's been a bad game week for a lot of people. I've had a green arrow, so I was like, I got away with one here. And then I thought, you know what? It's autopilot mode because I want to get a doubler for this week. I want to get a doubler for next week. And then we're into the last final day. And I opened up FPL.team. This is like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't say I was like fully...
Look at you obsessing about FPL
coffee
first
hadn't
thing in the
kicked in.
morning.
Now I knew I had the pod, so I thought I'd better check something. And I opened it up and then started looking at my team for this week, if I make my transfer. Started looking at my team for next week. Started looking at my bench, and fucking steam started coming out from my ears. So there is still plenty. My point is there's still plenty to think about because despite the logic of what's about to happen, it's not easy. And some people are going to get really fucking hurt in the next 2 weeks with their teams and points and benches. But yeah, all in all, I mean, I got 38 points, which is below average, and I got a green arrow, mate.
How did you get a green arrow with 38 in the top 100k?
72,700. I'm now 71,400. So
smashing it, mate.
It was a small rise, but when you look at it, I'll take it because of how bad it was for so many people this week. And my week started well with Salah, Trent and Robbo as triple Liverpool.
Robertson, that's the differential.
Double clean sheet and Salah. And then that was it. After that, all I had was Mitoma. I had negative points for Steele. Nothing from Luke Shaw. Who cares? Nothing from Rashford. Who cares? And the Newcastle boys didn't deliver. The Brighton boys didn't deliver. And Hall and Captain didn't deliver. And they are the ones that I thought I might get something out of Everton versus Everton.
How different the outlook may have been right now if at 1:15 the team news was Haaland's not starting for Man City and the website went and everyone was trying to change their captain. I guess most people would have ended up captain Mo, I think. I'd have ended up captain Alvarez.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have made a lot of difference to me.
This is nothing but a game week to forget. Like, just move it out of your mind because nothing happened. For the majority of people, I mean, you see scores, like the average is 39 now. Like, everybody in your team playing is 24 points. So you're talking about 3 or 4 returns.
Roughly about live averages. That's why I'm surprised you said 38.
Yeah, 38 and a green arrow, mate.
It's probably one of the rare weeks of the season when you get into the second half. I guess an overall average is probably comparable to, say, a top 10k average. Because you've got people sitting there with a lot of dead players who've ended up doing quite well. I don't suppose too many got Dwight McNeil sitting in their team.
Nah, I rolled as well. I obviously, listening to your deadline stream on Saturday, there wasn't any crazy news. The Grealish benching news, I moved him to second on my bench behind
Did you play instead?
Trippier.
Trips, so it didn't make no difference.
Yeah, exactly. No, Luke Shaw came on for Grealish into my team, and then Trippier was an auto sub for Stones, who didn't play.
Okay.
And that was it, really. I just didn't feel the need to make any moves or go crazy. And we roll into this week with 2 free transfers, and we'll talk about our plans in a bit. But yeah, all in all, a week to forget. I mean, from a footballing point of view...
Cray.
Yeah, from an FPL point of view, cray in a different way.
There was some crazy shit, especially yesterday. I mean... 21 goals and the one was scored by Brighton.
I mean, some real unexpected underdog victories. Not least, I mean, Spurs beat Palace. Would you believe that? What an underdog victory that is.
Have a word with yourself, please, beating Manchester United.
That was a shock in itself, bro.
No, there's lots of good football to talk about. 40 points for me in FPL this week.
No hits, no transfer.
No, rolled. So that was always the intention. I had a clear idea of plans subject to what the Man City team news was, and the Grealish not being in the City team was always just play Tony instead, which had I made a transfer, it would have probably been Alvarez in for Tony, and I'd have left it at that. Knowing that once I knew Haaland was playing, I never really wanted to do anything. I felt it would be a bit of a crapshoot, and there'd be more advantage in going into this week with exactly what you said. You know what you want to target this week in terms of teams. You know what you want to target in 37 in terms of teams, unless there's ways of looking at differentials. And I guess the more it condenses, the more there's a case to potentially do that sort of thing. Salah 10 for me, Trent 7, Mitoma 5, Green Arrow for me, again, because of Alexis, Big Mac, Alistair.
Yeah, he's done well 2 weeks in a row for the owners.
What a goal last night as well, by the way. Goal of the season contender.
Yeah.
I didn't even know he'd scored. It was that ugly. Took me up from 201k to 190. So, yeah, just chipping away at the moment.
119 or 190?
190.
190. Cool.
So I've jumped about 11k with 40 I scored this week. Still -2. But yeah, quite happy with that. Watkins and Tony not delivering, but again, literally the same as last week, differential with McAllister. And obviously the returns, I guess, a little bit fortuitous last week with the very late penalty. I mean, even more fortuitous this one. That said, before his freakish goal, he hit the bar with a header.
Yeah,
and he also forced Pickford into a decent save as well. But yeah, I certainly recognise getting the additional points. I mean, I guess 9 points, that goal, McAllister and Mitoma.
And not only that, obviously owning McAllister and Mitoma as opposed to March and Mitoma, you don't have a transfer headache this week that I do have with Solly March. Probably pulled his hamstring, so we don't think he'll be available for the double. I've got
no chance, mate. He's definitely done his hamstring.
Yeah. I've looked at my transfer for this week, or transfers. I've got 2 frees.
Yep.
And I'm open to a hit. So Solly March to McAllister, Sam Greenwood to Callum Wilson, Andy Robertson to either Dallo, if I think Dallo will get back in the Manchester United team, because he did come off the bench at the weekend, or, if that fails, Lindelof. That gives me a United doubler for next week, keeps me with 3 Brighton for this week and next week, and adds Callum Wilson. But talk to me about bench brutality. It would mean, like, the way I would end up doing it.
I've been warning for weeks. This week is going to be the worst.
The way I would end up benching this week and next would be, fuck it, bench all my Man United home to Wolves. So that would be Rashford, Shaw, and
Wolves conceded 6 in the last away game.
I know. And then bench all my Newcastle the week after. Against Leicester, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Now,
surely
now,
not.
Now you understand why I've got steam coming out of my head.
But you're not going to be the only one in this position. I've been warning about this.
Yeah.
That this week particularly would look terrible, because I think ordinarily most of us would come into this week, you'd have 3 Brighton, they've got Arsenal away, and you go, I sod it. I'm going to bench them this week. But with a double.
What's better? Listen to me. What's better? Leicester away for Liverpool or Wolves at home for United?
There is no way you can bench certainly the offensive Liverpool players, I don't think.
Okay, so I'll end up with Trent and Salah.
I think that's the right call.
So Trent and Salah over Shaw and Dallo.
I think cool. I'd play Rashford over Trent, subject to how many you've got defensively.
No, I'll be playing Trippier. Would you pay Trent over Stones, right?
Yes.
Everton,
yes,
away, who've just scored 5. I get it, at Brighton as well, but I don't want to bench my City players because they could.
No, I get
be close to the title.
Trent, you know what?
Trent's playing, and Salah's playing. So Dallo and Shaw, fine, I can bench them. But then you've got Rashford versus Stones.
Play Rashford, Suj.
Yeah, it's. Either way, it's a tricky couple of weeks. So what I'm actually thinking now is, do I just want to really go down to bench fodder for the players that I just want to leave on the bench? Like, take the headache out of my mind of not spreading it everywhere and just get some real shit in there and leave them on the bench to rot out. Do I really need to go from Sam Greenwood to Callum Wilson this week when the week after I'm going to bench him?
How many Newcastle have you got now?
2. Trippier and Isak.
And how many Brighton?
March, Mitoma and Steele.
So once you take March out, So you've got 2 free transfers. So with those 2 free transfers, you could buy Brighton and Newcastle player.
Yeah.
I mean, you could flip that the other way. It's interesting that I think for those who've got March and don't have McAllister, particularly because of what's happened over the last 2 weeks, the instinct is just to go to McAllister. But a different way for you to look at it would be something like maybe in terms of differential. You said you still want to make ground, right? If you go McAllister, because a lot naturally, I think, will go March to McAllister, you're just doing the same as everybody else, which is fine, by the way, if that's what you choose to do. But you could do it a different way and go, right, I'm going to go March to Joel Linton.
Yeah, that's the other one.
And I'm going to
Robertson
go
to Estupinan.
But you could do that, or you could even go, right, I'm going to go Greenwood to Enciso.
Yeah, that's the alternative.
And you still leave kind of that enabling one.
And leave Robertson there, because the thing with that is it doesn't kill my budget.
Would you play Robertson at Leicester?
No.
So what does it matter?
It's brutal.
And there's a bigger debate there as well, which is interesting, is obviously, and those particularly who listen to me on the deadline streams will know I'm very much of play the doubler. But like, would you play Estupinan this week ahead of Trent?
No,
I don't think you do.
Arsenal away, Newcastle away is tough. It's tough.
So there's many cases here with a single game week player still right, rather than a doubler.
Everton away for City. Leicester away for Liverpool.
Okay, so did you play Estupinan or Stones this week as an example?
Stones, because he's just had a rest and he's going to drop back into that midfield.
Yeah, but they've got Real Madrid 3 days afterwards, right?
Okay, Enciso or Stones, I'll take Enciso.
Plus, Everton will have 1 shot on target and score. So Stones is probably the 2-pointer. I think, like, for the likes of Trent, that's a play, I think. Really is over the likes of Estupinan. And then for you in your case, where you've already got Steele as well, realistically, Brighton have got Arsenal away and Newcastle away, which bar City are the 2 toughest away games. Okay, maybe you could put Liverpool in there as well. But do you want to get another Brighton defensive? If you've gone all this period without... That's not the solution this week, is it?
The second double the week after is City. The second fixture in the double. So it's brutal.
But then Southampton at home is the first part of that. But then Southampton at home falls 3 days after they go to Newcastle and 3 days before they play Man City at home. Is he going to rotate? And obviously De Zerbi spoke yesterday about the team really struggling with obviously this backlog of fixtures that's now come up and them not being used to playing twice in 3 days. It wasn't a whinge from his perspective. He's saying, look, if you want to be a top team, this is what's going to happen, isn't it? But that probably they're not quite ready for that. March obviously didn't start yesterday, which was a big shock. But a lot of the rumours going around in sort of the hour up to kickoff was that maybe he was suffering through fatigue. And he's come on and tried to do a sprint and done his hamstring near the end, right?
Brutal. I think this is one of them, like, I don't envy you on your deadline stream for this game week, mate.
Don't
worry
about it, because I ain't doing one.
Oh, lovely.
There will be something on Friday night.
Yeah, but you're going to get thrown stuff where it's just like, do what you want to do. Like, it's really... It's time.
I will do what I want to do. I'm going to Villa Park.
No, I mean, for FPL managers, mate, the advice you give is play it your way.
Nobody listening or watching this is silly enough to listen to me. Yes, it's play it your way.
Yeah, it's of all the weeks, I can't remember a week that's this hard with benching dilemmas for 2 weeks back to back. Yeah, so I haven't made a decision on what I'm going to do yet. I think I need to sleep on it for a little bit and see how it plays out.
Well, maybe I'll talk about mine a little bit. Might help as well. Just firstly, before I do captain this week, what are you thinking? So,
it's likely to be Isak.
Okay.
It's likely to be Isak. I'd like to pick a Brighton player, but their fixtures, I don't like the 2 away games. So I'm veering away from it. As Mitoma, I think it should be a doubler.
So you're going to discount Haaland?
Yeah.
This is 1 week to maybe have him at near a differential.
It's also slap bang in the middle of 2 Real Madrid
there's no guarantee
games.
that he'd even play.
Yeah. So that's why I'm comfortable, depending on what happens. What day of the week is it? Tuesday? Are they tonight or tomorrow? I can't remember.
Would you consider benching him?
Who, Haaland?
Yeah, just out of pure... just out of pure Hail Mary, completely go against it.
No, not even. No.
Have you considered Tritz for captaincy?
Yes,
which I know is going to make a lot of people angry because obviously when you look at
it was for about 3 seconds. Their leakiness is
when you look at his returns, and actually this goes back to game week 21 Since game week 21, he's had a 12-pointer against Manchester United in 29 double and a 5-pointer against Wolves in game week 27. Other than that, since game week 21, nothing more than 2.
Yeah.
But his EO is going to be the highest.
Yeah.
So you're probably losing on Kieran Trippier this week. I don't think much. I think those returns over a long period now have obviously not been there. That not too many want to captain him this week, and most will arguably do it because they want Kieran Trippier on side. I don't think as it stands right now that he's the best call. But as opposed to Isak or Wilson, he's starting twice. There's no guarantee with them other two, is there?
Yeah, but I think Wilson can still come on and do damage off the bench, as can Isak. So, I didn't. They're too leaky at the moment. Too leaky.
Okay. I have 3 Brighton, Steele, McAllister, Mitoma.
They're staying.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything with that. I mean, I wouldn't say it wouldn't come to me as a huge shock if Sanchez came back in. I wouldn't buy Steele at this stage. I'm also not going to sell him at this stage. Part of the reason why I'd kept Kepa over Raya a couple of weeks ago was if this happened, that, okay, I've got Kepa at home to Forest this week, or I've got Kepa's double in 37 if this happened. I'm not going to go thumping that about. Even if De Zerbi came out on Friday and said Sanchez is back in goal for Arsenal on Sunday, I'm not taking Steele out. I'm going to leave that rather than fight for the third Brighton. If I was to fight for it right now, it'd be Enciso would be the one I'd fight for. And I think you should consider that move, Suj. Doesn't work for me. I've got Trippier and Botman as my 2 Newcastle. Now, the obvious move here for me, I think, is to get Isak in for one of Tony or Watkins. That's a headache in itself in terms of deciding which one. Tony's got West Ham at home, Watkins got Tottenham at home. I think probably both return.
Did you see us keep a clean sheet against Manchester United?
Yes.
I don't know.
But,
I don't know, James.
But Tony's just blanked, right?
Yeah, true. Honestly, it's like shrug emoji. This is it. This is the episode. The title of the podcast should be I don't know, mate. Like, it's whichever one you pick. It could be the other one. Can I
tell you what I'll probably end up doing if I do that? I think I'll sell Tony. And the reason
bench Watkins.
No, I play Watkins.
Okay.
I still play Watkins against Tottenham. Go Isak, probably captain Isak, and I'd still play Watkins. And part of the reason of that, this is where it gets you in your mind. I'm thinking, if I sell Watkins, I'm going to sell Watkins at home to Tottenham. I know what's coming. And then I'm going to end up benching Tony against Tottenham next week. I know what's coming. So there is a little bit of a psychological on me going, it's going to doubly hurt me twice. And I think it's close enough. I think Villa Tottenham will be more open than Brentford West Ham, would be my take. So I think
agree with that.
It's probably Tony that would go reluctantly. But I also think, Suj, as well, I think there's a high probability you'll rotate because you're done now, aren't you? And this falls in between your own European semi-finals.
Yes.
You're done. With the win on Sunday, there's no chance you go down now. None.
Nah. Yeah.
You are completely safe. So you could pick a weakened team at Brentford.
I think having Leeds and Leicester as our last 2 games helps us because obviously it's points against each other.
Because they could catch you.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's points off each other. But you look at the fixtures. They've got one of them's got Tottenham, Liverpool, and us. The other's got City, Newcastle, and us. Or whatever. There's no way that they're getting to 39 points because that's the most that they can get to.
There's no way that 2 of them are doing it.
Yeah,
or more to the point, there's no way that 3 of them are doing it.
Yeah.
So, you're completely safe now. So you could mass rotate at Brentford.
Yeah, I don't know if we will. I think a lot depends on the result on Thursday.
So it has got me considering a rogue suggestion, which I think is a little bit silly, but I'm considering going treble Newcastle defence. Which there's no clean sheets there at the moment. But just looking at it and asking myself, what's best for my team right now? What's best for my team? Now, I think I end up getting Isak because I don't want to captain Kieran Trippier. And if I did go treble Newcastle defence, I would go so all in on it that I would probably captain Trippier rather than a Brighton player with Arsenal and Newcastle away. But I'm not going to rule that out of my thinking as a possibility. What I really don't like about that is the ugliness that I'm definitely forcing myself into defensive moves in 37 doing that. Not because Leicester at home's bad, but also Chelsea away 38 as well. And people go, Chelsea can't score, but I don't really want to be going into the final day with like double Newcastle away to Chelsea and stuff. It's not really what I want at the end. But it is a different way to do it. And even though I don't think that's the right play, imagine if it did come good.
I don't like it.
Imagine if they did keep 2 clean sheets. Like the sort of jump I could get off that.
I don't like it for 2 reasons. They're both the fixtures. So Leeds away, there's a home game for Leeds. Big Sam, they're going to be unapologetic about just lobbing it in the box and trying to create chances and stuff. And
I don't think that's particularly a big problem for Newcastle.
No, they generally are good, but eventually, you don't need them to keep the score low. You need a clean sheet. I reckon Leeds will score. Against.
My instinct is you're probably right.
Yeah, and Brighton will as well.
And my instinct is you're probably right.
It's why I don't like it. Will Newcastle win both those games? It's very probable, but will they keep a clean sheet? Less so. I don't like it. This is the whole Leeds with Big Sam. It's a bit unpredictable. Triple, like having 1 or 2, sure, and trips is steady Eddie, but...
So the other thing I'm considering, so I think the most likely for me is Isak and probably just over Tony rather than Watkins, and then captain Isak. And then I've got 6 from Brighton, Newcastle. I play my 2 Liverpool, Trent and Salah.
Yep.
I play Marcus Rashford against Wolves. Haaland obviously plays at Everton. I probably bench Grealish, Shaw, Henry, which is grim. But I think, but I think there'll be worse ones this week than that. Another thing I'm considering is obviously ditching Botman. Going Lindelof, which then for the -4, get Wilson and Isak and go with it.
It sets you up for the week after, I get it.
And then that's done a Manchester United player in that takes me to Lindelof, Shaw and Rashford set for 37. What I don't like about that particularly though is it's probably forcing me to a Manchester City offensive player in 37. And I don't have any defensive. And that's not saying I definitely want a defensive. It's not like they're throwing clean sheets everywhere. But what I really don't like about that move is, at the moment, I think a lot of people will be in this position. Not necessarily want to bin Mo Salah, but the idea that to go into 37 and have the choice of Kevin De Bruyne or Bruno Fernandes and whatever I feel at the time feels a bit better. Whereas if I go the Lindelof move, I've completely locked myself into Kevin De Bruyne from that choice and ruled myself out of Bruno Fernandes.
Agreed, yeah.
So that's why I don't necessarily like that. Because I think as well, although obviously Arsenal won on Sunday and it looks like the title will go further on, I still don't think there's any guarantee that De Bruyne would play Sunday, Wednesday in 37.
Yeah.
Particularly if they did beat Chelsea in the 37 game. Say they only needed a point or 2 from the final 2. I don't think there's a guarantee that he'd play. That said, an open fixture like Brighton, you would imagine Kevin De Bruyne would play in that game and Guardiola would want him to. So it's not to say I want to get rid of Mo Salah for 37, I don't. But in terms of maximising the possibility of those doublers in 37, that's where my holes are, if you will. A KDB or a Bruno Fernandes. And I'm going to potentially block myself out of that with this -4. So I haven't decided yet. I would rather, in terms of best 3, I think it would still be probably Trippier, Isak and Wilson, despite no guarantee that Wilson will play twice. I think the Longstaff information this week is quite important. If Longstaff is still out, there's every chance that Isak and Wilson will both play again. Does that then make Wilson the better choice of the 2? Because Isak would play wide. Isak, I think, is ahead of Wilson, in my opinion.
But Wilson could outscore Isak. This is the thing, right? I think for minutes...
We've seen Wilson do this off the bench.
For minutes,
and vice versa.
I agree. But for points, I don't think it's as clear-cut. And over 2 games, I think they'll both end up in and around the 110, 120-minute mark. So, yeah, this is one where, again, shrug emoji, take your poison.
I also think, like, for those with the March problem, I think Joel Linton and Willock should both be serious considerations.
Yeah, for sure.
But would be helped if Longstaff was back so those 2 could play on the left. The other thing with Newcastle as well, and we did get a glimpse on this Sunday, which muddies the waters a little bit further, is obviously St. Maximin's available. In theory, he could just play on the left, couldn't he? So much to debate. I think the most likely for me will be Tony to Isak, captain Isak, and it'll be what it'll be. And have the 2 for whatever's the best Manchester City, Manchester United choices for me going into game week 37 is the most likely.
Cool. Let's talk about some of these games, James. We've got the 10 to rattle through. the thing with them now, from an FPL point of view, so many are going to be like, avoid, ignore, don't need.
We can skim quite a few of these if we're being honest.
Yeah, to be fair. Bournemouth 1, Chelsea 3. They're back, James. The Blues of West London are back.
Open top bus, was it?
Well, I don't think they're still not going to catch Brentford, in my opinion, in the battle for West London.
I wouldn't even know what the difference was.
I think before
8,
the weekend it was 6 or 7, so 45 to 39, 6 points, I think, before the weekend.
They've still got to go to the Etihad and Old Trafford and play Newcastle at home Chelsea, so I don't think so.
Yeah, they're not going to catch them. As it stands right now, James, just for clarity, they are 8 points behind, 50 to 42. That's a lot.
They ain't catching that.
Nah. But they'll be glad to get on the score sheet with 3 goals and win. And
Chelsea's got 3 goals. Someone put a typo. Feels like someone put a typo on many of these correct scores from the weekend, actually. Few changes, not unexpected from the embarrassment at Arsenal. Obviously, that was their last game before, wasn't it? The Arsenal game? Yeah. Obviously, no Aubameyang wasn't even in the squad. Start from Mudryk. Badiashile played left-sided centre-back. Chalobah played right-back. Probably the headline one from an FPL perspective, he's the one Chelsea player was possibly interesting. He's injured. Ben Chilwell. We don't know the prognosis at this stage, but there will definitely be teams who've been kind of sleeping with him in the team at the moment, thinking, hey, what a great differential for Bournemouth away and Forest at home and then their own double in 37. Definitely, there will be people who have him. You need to keep eyes and ears on the information this week. With his injury record and the fact that Chelsea's season is basically an irrelevance, and I mean that with respect, why would Chelsea risk him at this stage unless he's absolutely fine? So he's probably going to be a bin one for many people, and it might be that opens the door for a Manchester United or Manchester City defender rather than a Newcastle Brighton at this stage for many, I'm going to guess. So it might be Chilwell just sits there dead, takes away one of your benching dilemmas this week and goes in 37 might be the right solution. Don't think we can recommend to go into anything new. I'd mentioned last week I thought it'd be a bit better off with Gallagher playing, and he scored the type of goal that I don't think any of the other midfield 3 do, arriving into the box, scoring a good header. I watched quite a bit of this on Saturday night, actually, because it was the game of the day. And there wasn't a lot between the two teams. I'd say who stood out was, I think Ryan Christie played really well for Bournemouth.
Okay.
Really lively, both in terms of creativity, could have scored a goal or two himself. I was surprised that Bournemouth didn't play a back 3. Very difficult to be critical of them when they've had such a very, very good run recently. But I just thought there was a little bit of a danger of them getting overwhelmed defensively a bit. And on occasion they did, but it was to be honest, it was a pretty even game. It was a decent watch. And Chelsea fans are probably delighted to see their team score a few goals. I don't think anyone's adding Bournemouth at this stage. Solanke, give or take your persuasion, is either a keep or a sell. I guess if he opens up a door to an Isak or a Wilson this week, that's probably straightforward. I guess most will probably bench this week. Would they go to Palace, don't they?
Away.
I mean, it's not beyond Bournemouth to be scoring in that fixture, but I guess there's going to be so many headaches for so many this week. I imagine Dominic Solanke will land on a lot of benches, to be honest.
Yeah. You think Chelsea, because next week we've already, a lot of people already own a lot of City, United and Brighton for the double in 37. Chelsea not getting overlooked a little bit. Like if you wanted to add one and really punt it, like a Felix.
We've spoken about like an Isak, right? At home, you've spoken about benching your Newcastle players at home to Leicester. This is a little bit like, say, the Brighton defensive this week, say, and Estupiñán versus Trent. Fast forward to 37. Would you rather want to play Isak at home to Leicester or Havertz away to City and away to United?
Yeah, I'm taking Isak.
You probably are, aren't you? And it's not to say...
As much as Chelsea have won this game, I don't think that
to be honest with you, I wouldn't rule out the idea of punting something like a Havertz or a Mudryk really late on for 37, purely just to punt it, but actually to sit here and recommend it, no, and I don't think I'll be going near him, to be honest. I think there's enough doubt defensively as well. Chilwell would have been the one, right? You think, even with no clean sheets, could he nick a goal across those 2 games? Yeah, maybe. Can't see any real justification to wanting to get involved in them. I think the one probably to monitor this week would be Havertz. And the best thing for everybody would be if he blanked against Nottingham Forest. Rather than, oh my God, Havertz scored twice against Forest and we're sitting here this week talking him up. And then going, I'm going to go Isak to Havertz because Havertz has got a double. And actually, really, just removing yourself for that, I'm not sure that's right, is it?
No.
I mean, if you were in that situation, you said you'd bench Newcastle players. So say you went Isak to Havertz in 37.
No.
Who am I going to bench? Who would you bench instead?
It's tough. It's tough. I'm just playing devil's advocate there with Chelsea because they do have a double in 37 and they're getting largely overlooked. And if there's someone that was really chasing and feeling like they really wanted to punt, then, you know.
If you fast forward to 37, though, just briefly. So Liverpool at home to Villa. He's still at Anfield. You don't really want to be benching Trents and Salahs and stuff like that. I mean, I've spoken about the idea of maybe even moving a Salah to, say, a Fernandes or a De Bruyne in that week. If you've got Tottenham at home to Brentford, you're not benching Kane.
Yeah, regardless of the fixture, you don't bench.
Last ever home game for Tottenham until August. Right?
For Kane?
Yeah.
Or for the club? For the rest of the team?
No, but in seriousness, say you walk into that week with Porro,
yeah,
and a few, not many, but a few have, you'd want to probably play him in that sort of fixture, especially if he's going to play right wing, which we'll come on to.
I bought that bastard in my -56 team, by the way.
Arsenal away to Forest. So if you'd still got your Martinellis, your Sakas, your Odegaards, you really want to bench him in that fixture. So we add in Havertz to that and going, Havertz because he's got an extra game and it's the two Manchester clubs away. I think United have got the best defensive home record, I want to say.
Clean sheets wise.
They must do in home games. I think they've only conceded about 8 at home, I think.
Yeah. And
the other game for Havertz is City away. Nah, no thank you, mate.
Yeah, agreed. Let's talk about City then. I just mentioned -56. You see my -56, 61 points this week.
I got about 30.
30 on the bench.
Who you?
Willian, Creswell, Fraser Forster, and I can't remember which other bastard, but they got 5 points as well on my bench.
Did you know, completely irrelevant statistic from the weekend, that yesterday at Fulham was the first time 2 players over 30 had scored a brace?
Oh, wow.
For one team in the
There's
Premier
hope
League.
for us yet, James.
Tom Kearney and Willian, there you go.
Oh, and
who knew
40 does,
who knew that Tom Kearney was that old? Who knew?
Yeah, I mean, it's been around for a while. Fair play. Segueing into City 2, Leeds 1. The scoreline will kind of make it look a little bit maybe tighter than it was, but City had a massive XG over 2.5. Leeds didn't, 0.2. 19 shots, 18 shots, 4 big chances for City. When Erling Haaland's taking air shots, taking a piss.
Hold up. I mean, the thing is, it's largely irrelevant for most people.
Oh, hugely.
This week in terms of his FPL returns or stuff. It just would have been nice if he'd got 1 or 2 and we were all sitting there going, we all scored 60 the same rather than 40 or 38 or whatever. But yeah, his misses this week probably won't be misses in the next one. That's all you ever think with him,
still picked up 2 shots on target for Sky. Didn't captain him in Sky, but we'll talk about that on Wednesday, tomorrow.
Yeah, it was just, to be honest, it was a masterclass in near misses, I guess.
Yeah.
Very interesting team lineup, obviously, for City, which included Rico Lewis.
No Diaz, no Stones, no Grealish,
no Stones,
no Kevin De Bruyne.
It was another start for Nathan Ake, although there was a rumour that he didn't train for City yesterday ahead of obviously a gigantic game in the Bernabeu tonight. De Bruyne, Alvarez and Haaland together was interesting. Alvarez, I think, is arguably only really going to be useful if there's no Haaland, or if it's definitely him that's got the responsibility to be the runner to go beyond. I did think that playing all 3 of them, as in De Bruyne as the third one, felt a little bit extreme offensively. And maybe there's something in that with the way City scored the 2 goals, which is obviously Mahrez pulling the ball back for Gundogan. I know there was a number of people who got the news and gambled Mahrez really late on. It could have easily been Foden instead, right? So I think he's returned a 10-pointer with
Rodri
2 interesting assists. Always a risk for City to play without Rodri. They won't do that at Everton. It's a certainty. Rodri will play at
not
Everton.
Even based on the way that Everton played against Brighton, really pressing it in their faces and nicking the ball and turning over. Rodri gives them a bit of control there. I
think Guardiola just took the choice that this was the game that he could get away with the most.
Yeah, and they did.
Interesting, though, that Haaland played the full 90. So he's played 90 minutes against Fulham, 90 minutes against West Ham, nearer enough. Did he come off very late, maybe? I can't remember. Anyway, it felt like it was near enough the whole game. And he played, obviously, 90 minutes on Saturday as well.
Against us, he played the 90.
He played the 90.
He
I
obviously
couldn't
broke the
remember if he
record
come
against
off.
us,
I
didn't
couldn't
he?
remember if he come up very late or not. No,
I'm pretty sure he didn't.
no, he didn't. I
Probably
just
down.
checked it. So he's played 270 Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday. You'd think big, and not only that as well, but Saturday lunchtime as well. And obviously played Real Madrid tonight. Now, could Guardiola do a mad one and not start him in the Bernabeu? I don't think so. There's an interesting thing I was thinking about Haaland. And it was in relation to some comments that I think a few pundits had made on Sky about Haaland being the first genuine superstar in the Premier League, like players like Thierry Henry and Cristiano Ronaldo never existed or something. But in any case...
Who said that?
I can't remember. It was someone on Sky. Yeah, I know. I was at Tottenham, so I wasn't watching it live at the time. But it did get me thinking away from it. And this genuine suspicion all the time with Haaland that he'll get benched somewhere or something or other. And it got me thinking, if he really is a superstar, and I guess we are saying he probably is best number 9 in the world at the moment, people will still make a case for a Benzema or something. We wouldn't really class Mbappe as that. We know Mbappe can play that position, but I think as an out-and-out number 9, Haaland's now the best, isn't he already? Yeah? Lewandowski's another one, Harry Kane, whatever. But it got me thinking about Messi and Ronaldo, and when they were at their peak, how often did they get benched?
Not often. Or hooked early. Rarely.
How many times would Barcelona have like Champions League game Wednesday, Champions League game Tuesday, and Messi would get 4 on a Saturday or something?
Yeah.
And should we consider that it might be the case with him? That
it's all about his style of play as well. He's not box to box and burning up energy and stuff. Yeah. He 40 touches, 17 passes at the weekend. It's not hugely active. I think he's fine. He's 22 years old, mate. He's not even at his peak. He's just getting stronger and fitter.
Okay. The only game he's not started for Manchester City, other than through injury, was a 26-minute appearance against Fulham in game week 15, when there was several doubts of whether he was fit enough anyway, having missed the game at Leicester the week before, so wasn't 100% fit. They brought him on, if you remember, he scored a late penalty because they needed a goal. And he wasn't fully fit. That was the general. So when we look at it across the season, has Guardiola ever left Haaland out?
Nah.
Has he actually selected him when he's been 100% fit every game? The only times he hasn't is when there's been a bit of a doubt about him. So if there's no injury doubt, should we actually just get into the mindset here that he plays?
Yeah. Forget about all this 1:15, 3 p.m. deadline or 1:30 deadline. Is he, isn't he? Just leave it.
I think it would have made complete sense if they'd left him out on Saturday. I really do.
For who?
I didn't. My instinct was that he would start, but it would have come no surprise to me if he'd left him out at the weekend.
He just never looks like he's struggling fitness-wise or physically. Fatigue we talk about. He doesn't seem like he struggles with it, so I don't know why they would leave him out.
Would you be surprised if he was left out at Everton?
Yes.
Me too, massively.
Yes. Like, if you're taking Liverpool's traffic light system, this guy's on green every fucking game, mate.
Are we genuinely saying no consideration to captain him this week?
Yeah, no, I'm going to go doubler.
Do you know what?
Go with a doubler.
I'm not going to rule it out.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a doubler. I know what you're saying.
Let me put it this way. I'm not going to say here and say I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. I'm with you, but it's unlikely. Just one shout out from this game. İlkay Gundogan completed 21.5% of all of Manchester City's accurate passes. They completed 795 passes in the game, which is a shitload. He completed 21.5% of all of the team's accurate passes, a fifth of them. 171 passes, according to SofaScore. That's a fucking joke.
He beat a record that was held by himself.
That's a fucking joke. Like, just think about the amount of domination in a game, or how involved in a game you have to be to complete 171 passes.
It's basically
mental.
It's basically unheard of in a Premier League game.
It's a joke
to hit that number.
And in amongst the team like City, where everyone's sharing it around and they're moving it so fast,
unbelievable. We saw in the World Cup, Rodri had 200 and something against Japan, and then I think had even more against Morocco. But it's slower pace of football, international level. For that volume in the Premier League, I don't need to have watched the game to know how Leeds performed in terms of off the ball. They've clearly not gone and pressed him at all at any stage. The centre-back passing numbers, I've not looked at it, but I bet they're lower than arguably what you'd expect from City, probably because they've been able to punch it into midfield.
Have a stab at Laporte.
70-ish?
102.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, got that one.
Manuel
Mind you, he
Akanji.
played as the middle as the free, didn't he?
Akanji, who was on the right.
70-ish.
90.
Okay, and it was the third, Aki.
Aki, let me pull him up.
Oh, Aki went off quite early.
This is
probably in the 50s.
Yeah, this app's shit. SofaScore,
fine.
Fucked up. It's put everyone over.
Right, there goes our sponsorship with SofaScore. Thanks, Suj.
Yeah, but anyway, shout out to that. 171 passes is incredible. Anything from Leeds with Big Sam in that might make you want to punt any of their players?
Yeah, Jack Harrison's one completed pass. I saw that one. Quickly though, before we do Leeds,
Aki at half time, 52.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
54 minutes.
Gundogan taking the penalty, just briefly.
Yeah.
Pep was not happy, and if you'd not seen it, Guardiola very clearly mouths, and when I say mouths, he shouts, "Erling, you take it. You take it." This is after. Guardiola made it perfectly clear to everybody that if Erling Haaland's on the pitch, Erling Haaland should be taking the penalty. It's not the first time it's happened recently. He gave Mahrez one for in a game a little while ago as well. I'm not sure if that'll happen again. I don't know if there's anything in that from Haaland's perspective. Why wouldn't take it? I know Gundogan was on a hat trick.
He's playing well. Give him the hat trick.
But a 2-0,
and then it went to 2-1.
You're not safe. And then obviously nearly straight away Leeds score with probably the third time they crossed the halfway line. It was a really nicely taken goal by Rodrigo that is really badly dealt with from Akanji's perspective, which of course clean sheet wipeout for Edison. How many passes did he complete, Such? He was probably quite high up as well.
Do you reckon? Have a stab. Have a guess.
30.
22.
Okay.
He didn't touch the ball that much.
To be honest, we have seen Edison hit near 60 in certain games before. If you're an Edison owner, you've just been very unlucky on this one. Don't bin it at this stage. Yeah, it was people saying to me at the weekend, "Oh, I should go Edison to steal. I fucked it." No, and I know when Leeds scored, you'd have gone, "Oh, we should have done it." But then look what happened to steal yesterday, right? If you've got it, if you've made the decision to go for an Edison or a Manchester City defender, and let's say it's Aki and he's ruled out injured, which we don't have the information for at the moment, then you've made your bed, get on with it, would be my case.
Tottenham 1, Palace 0.
No interest in Leeds assets, no. They basically they played a 4-3-3, basically. Christensen played centrally, which I thought was a bit strange. Very defensive. We're not going to judge Leeds on this. It's more important what happens next. Just what I remember, obviously, that's the 12:30, Leeds Newcastle, which is that late transfers again, is it, on Saturday?
Maybe.
Could be.
Tottenham 1, Palace 0. Again, two teams that we're not really that interested in the coming weeks.
Whoa.
No, not. I mean, a lot of people that are owning Harry Kane will see this goal and keep Harry Kane. That's clear. Yeah, you guys moved to a 4-3-3, 4-4-2.
What was
something?
Just quickly, I don't even know what the XG. What was Palace's XG?
Palace's XG
in the game
was, have a stab,
0.8.
0.36. Yours was
really?
0.88.
Yeah,
because of the goal.
Those who was listening to me on Friday and Saturday morning will know that I thought this was going to be a bit of a car crash, and it absolutely was
the
not.
opposite.
Yeah, no, it really
5
was.
shots on target between the two of you. Doesn't sound like it was particularly thrilling.
No, it wasn't. The game started at a decent tempo. Palace, just briefly, because I can obviously get carried away talking about Tottenham, I was pretty disappointed in them, to be honest. I couldn't remember spells in the game where sort of Eze had the ball in positions that could hurt us. Felt very comfortable, and was never even. They had a few balls coming to the box fairly late on and stuff. I was never overly concerned that we were going to concede, despite how shit we are defensively. So I was a bit disappointed with them. They defended quite well themselves. It wasn't a great football match. They've still got some good fixtures to go. If I was mad enough to want to punt a Palace player at this stage, it'd probably still be Wilf. Pay the extra for it at this stage, I think, but no real interest. Tottenham, so surprise, something very, very interesting happened, which started when I'd obviously ended the deadline stream, managed to beg I'd lift off my wife to the train station, and saw the team as I got off the train. I managed to get from my door to the stadium in 20 minutes, Suj.
That's decent.
It is, isn't it? Saw the team and did a double take when I saw Emerson Royal win it. In fact, I was so taken aback by it. It wasn't till about 2:10 that I noticed that Basuma was a substitute as well. Because Mason had been asked about the two players on Friday and said that he hopes that there was every chance they'd play again before the end of the season. So there was literally no suggestion of it. And as soon as I saw Emerson in the team, I thought, well, this is going to be a very different football match to what I was expecting. And I thought when I saw it that Emerson would play right-sided centre-back, Ben Davies and Porro as the wing-backs, and it would be similar system. Because what threw, I think, was the idea that Emerson and Porro were both in the team. Could it be Emerson at left wing-back with Davies at left-sided centre-back? Yes. But then I couldn't understand, therefore, why he wouldn't have just played Perisic. Rather than rush Emerson back to play at left wing-back. Didn't make sense. So I knew Emerson was going to play somewhere on that right-hand side. He probably played, in my opinion, his natural position for Tottenham, for the first time since Nuno Santo left the football club.
Right back, you mean?
He played as a right back, and he played as a very defensive right back. And Pedro Porro played right wing.
And did he do well against Zaha, Emerson Royal? Kept him quiet enough?
Solid as, yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. That's all you want from him, right?
It's probably more one for Tottenham on Wednesday. I'm a big defender of Emerson Royal.
Yeah,
limited offensively. People, we got him and people thought he was fucking Cafu or something. Like, he's not. Stop judging him like that. He's a very good 1v1 defender. I think he's positionally quite sound. And Tottenham kept their first clean sheet on Saturday since he got injured. Shouldn't be that much of a surprise, actually. And everything just looked a lot more solid. He played as a right back with Porro playing right wing, and Tottenham played as hybrid where in slow build-up possession, Davis moved forward to left wing back. So Porro held position because obviously you're with the ball as still like a right winger, but it's right wing back basically. And Emerson tucked in to make like a third centre back. No Eric Dyer, so Christian Romero was obviously central of the three. Longley playing left-sided centre back gives that hybrid feel. Much better balance, in my opinion. I'd like to see Longley and Romero play together for the rest of this season. And Christian Romero played much better. Much
next
better.
Week he'll have his
probably,
his
yeah.
4 instead of his 9 out of 10.
When he's got to deal with Ollie Watkins running in behind, it'll probably cause a little bit more damage.
Just pull his hair.
But yeah, I felt the fact that he had Emerson to his right, who doesn't jump out. Romero wants to jump out. He wants to be aggressive. And you shouldn't necessarily restrict that. We've seen players like Nicolas Otamendi, another example, his Argentinian teammate, just can't help it. He'd want to go and step out, and it would hurt City on occasion. But if he gets it right, it's a weapon to turn the ball over and counter-attack quickly. And largely, he was fine, Romero, on Saturday. I don't know if he took extra responsibility because Dyer was there. And in fairness, when Tottenham have played without Dyer previously over the last 6 months or so, which hasn't been often, they've looked like a disaster because the organisation was really bad. And I think Longley gives it a little bit more balance. I think he's a no-frills left-footed centre-back, but he gives it better balance and a little bit of experience as well. And Tottenham were much, much better defensively, primarily because of this change in system, but most importantly because Emerson Royal was back. From the FPL perspective, it does make Pedro Porro really, really interesting. So if it's going to stay hybrid, he's going to stay in that position.
Who have you got next?
Villa away.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to segue to Villa in a second. They had a good XG against Wolves, even though they didn't manage to get on the score sheet, and they've been playing all right. It's one of those situations where you're buying a defender for attacking returns rather than defensive clean sheets.
I would not recommend that anybody went and bought Pedro Porro this week.
But got me 11, 12 points in my. But
there are some that have already done it.
Yeah, if you hold, play him.
And yeah, but probably benching headaches. We're probably thinking, away to Villa, I'll bench that. Consider as well with Villa that Moreno does bomb on.
Yeah,
there may be space back the other way, quite possibly. So an interesting one. I would not go and buy new. He might be one to come back for the last 2, maybe. But I don't think you're buying Pedro Porro because it's Villa away this weekend and you're desperate to start him. But we know some will, just purely off the basis that he's returned a 12-pointer at the weekend. If you're a Perisic owner, can't tell you if he'd get back in or not. So I think that would more be an easy bench one this week, I think, for Perisic. Harry, never bench, as often warned. Tottenham do have a historically very, very good record at Villa Park, but we've never played an Aston Villa team with Unai Emery in charge. It was a poor game of football at White Hart Lane. A poor game. But probably 1-0 was probably a right result.
And that Villa team that managed by Unai Emery went to Molineux and lost 1-0 at the weekend, despite having a higher XG than Wolves.
Yeah, but then, like, the three teams who lost yesterday all had higher XG. But then when you drill into the detail, and I don't know if this is true of the Wolves-Villa game, because I've not seen a lot of it. You drill into the detail, Everton had a higher XG at 4-0. Okay, so they've let Brighton have a chance at the end. Forest had a higher XG at 4-2, and Fulham had a much higher XG at 5-1 yesterday. So, okay, so they're letting teams who were massively chasing. You've got two teams there with 4 goals behind, chasing games, they're having chances. That's why you always have to be careful with XG in one-off scenarios, because Wolves are obviously going to invite some pressure there. What was like the first half XG, for example? So
I could tell you in a second. Stats.
It's probably still Villa.
First half. A bit more even, but yes, still Villa. Double, 0.65 to 0.27. They had 7 shots, 3 on target in the first half.
Villa might do something now, which Lee Jackson had speculated on when he came onto a COTC with us prior to blank game week 32, where they might move Ezri Konsa to right back to allow the return of Diego Carlos into the team. Because as good as Konsa and Mings have been, one thing they might lack is long, direct distribution. I think Tyrone Mings has had a really, really good few months, actually. But in terms of sort of playing 40-yard diags, if you will, not really part of his setup. It is something that Carlos can do to start Villa offensively a bit quicker. And Ashley Young is essentially, because Moreno bombs on the left-hand side, essentially kind of sits in like Emerson had done for Tottenham on Saturday and almost plays like a third centre-back and done very well. But it might be that Villa's choice going forward is to bring Carlos into that now and have Konsa play at right back, and then you've still got Moreno bombs on the left-hand side. The players that Villa have had injured recently, the Coutinhos, Baileys, etc., all back available. So it gives them a little bit of flexibility in terms of selection. I was surprised that Dendoncker didn't play because he's done quite well for them recently, and they shoved McGinn back in centrally and started Bertrand Traore. He lasted till half-time, then Leon Bailey came on. I wouldn't be surprised if Kamara comes back in for the game against Tottenham at the weekend, as long as he's fit enough to start. For Wolves, not for the first time, home clean sheet and a victory. I think it's 9 of their 10 wins under Lopetegui, I think, have included a clean sheet. And that's something potentially to bear in mind for certain games they've got left. Who have Wolves got at the weekend? Oh, United away, isn't it? But their away returns, they've still got to go to United and Arsenal, haven't they? Their home game left is Everton, who showed how brilliant they are and offensive yesterday. But going to Wolves is never an easy game. Villa will feel like they've probably blown their chance of Europe. But I would suggest that Brighton are still catchable after that result yesterday, because Brighton do have tough games left. And if Villa beat Tottenham on Saturday, which they're very capable of doing, then they go level with Tottenham in a potential shootout for Europa Conference League place, which 7th place will definitely get this season. Villa fans probably feel, though, that this was arguably the easiest of their 4 games left, because they finished with Liverpool away and Brighton at home as well. So Villa have got to play the 3 teams directly above them, probably need to win arguably 2 of them, which they're very capable of doing, but probably need to win 2 of them to have a chance of qualifying for Europe. They may even need a little bit more, because even if they beat Tottenham at the weekend, they'll go level with Tottenham, but then Tottenham's last 2 is Brentford, Leeds, whereas Villa have got Liverpool and Brighton, so it will still feel like advantage Tottenham for that.
Yep. So
Villa will need to beat Tottenham on Saturday. They're very capable of doing so, but it might be a very different game to what I'd have been expecting because of the change that Tottenham made at the weekend.
Liverpool 1, Brentford 0. Man City completed more passes than Liverpool and Brentford put together in this game. That might be true for a few games this week. I did see somewhere that someone had tagged on Twitter that their ball in play in this, as predicted, was shite.
It often is in Brentford games.
Exactly. So I think for Liverpool's point of view, it's a ugly win, just get it done type thing. It's not easy to play Brentford at the best of times. We know their away record, and we've talked about how they've been able to beat City and stuff like that this season. So a decent XG, but obviously a penalty in there, so that does help for Liverpool. And Salah returning.
Who had a penalty?
I thought Salah scored a penalty.
No, I mean equivalent of, because he scored from about a yard. But,
okay. Well, then that's going to have a high XG. Why was I thinking Salah had a penalty? I think in the previous game.
Fulham he did, previous game, yes.
Sky Captaincy, cloud in the brain. Just saying. I don't know with Liverpool. I think Robertson's now expendable for me. Trent and Salah stay, but Robertson is expendable because they don't double when other teams do. But that's 6 wins in a row.
Are we surprised?
No.
The last 5 all by a single goal margin as well.
Yeah.
So close games.
Bit of refereeing help along the way.
And to be honest, as we mentioned about Brighton and ball in play. Brentford and ball in play. But if Brentford had got something out of this, if anybody would have caused a real fuss to say it was desperately unlucky. I mean, to be honest, I got home and Liverpool just scored, but bar that, I watched the rest of this game. I thought Tony was best player on the pitch. I thought he was great in terms of his hold-up and length. I thought the three did well. Interestingly, and Yeka played a wider midfield role when I thought he'd probably be the sitter of that midfield three. They got support up to Tony and Mbeumo. Were quite good, to be honest, Suj. They're a really difficult team to play against. Tottenham will find that 37. And as someone who doesn't want Arsenal to win the league, I don't want Manchester City to have to win at Brentford in game week 38. So I think that's nervous.
Yeah, very
nervous. Imagine, I can't think of, if you needed a goal, I can't think of a worse team to play against in terms of stop-start.
Yeah.
If you're trying to build momentum and stuff, really awkward team to play against. But actually, it played some good stuff when the game was on. And the good moments that Liverpool did have after the goal largely came because of some individual errors. Klopp started with Cody Gakpo in a deeper position, which gave Brentford a lot of problems in sort of the opening quarter because they were going very man-to-man, and I don't think they could quite work out early in the game who was going to go and be responsible to going out to Gakpo. So they were probably expecting Gakpo to drop off, but obviously Gakpo was just picking up a deeper starting position in the first instance. Interesting game. I'm not sure how quickly Klopp will try that again with Gakpo in that deep position. Nunes had one really good chance in the first half, but otherwise not a lot. It wasn't a thrilling game in terms of chances. That came in later games during the week. I'll tell you what I will throw out an early prediction for next season, Suj. I was thinking this watching the game. Aaron Hickey. We haven't spoke about all season nearly. Not got the attacking returns that may have been expected. I bet he's one that's interesting next season if he drops to 4.5.
Okay. Sunday, couple of games. Newcastle, Arsenal, 2-0 to Arsenal. I was down in Highbury in an Arsenal pub watching the first half of this. For the first time I'd been in a pub to watch a game that was partisan. Like, I've been to the pub to watch games since lockdown. It's the first time I was in a pub where all the fans were of one team. It was weird. I was like, why is everyone shouting so much? Like, why are they all singing Arsenal? Obviously we've watched games in the pub together, but it's different when there's like lots of different fans.
You've never been to the pub for an England game? Ever? Yeah,
I have, but it's been like 3 years or 4 years since I've watched a game in a pub where it's partisan. It's different watching a game in a pub where versus where it feels like it's basically the stadium and everyone's watching it. It was weird. But anyway, Arsenal did okay.
I think it's weird that you went there.
Well, it was a stop on the way to go into our game. So it was a chance to have a couple of pints.
I wouldn't have stopped.
Well, yeah, especially wearing the jumper you are, mate, or zip top.
Listen, we might be shit, but I'm still proud of my colours.
They did all right, Arsenal, to be fair, because this was going to be a tough game and a tough battle, and they came through it.
To be honest,
it was a challenging game, but they done all right.
Won, but it's probably Arsenal's best result of the season, isn't it? To win at Newcastle, it's a great result, isn't it?
I'd have to think about it, but it was up there, sure. Off the back of the run that they've been on as well, to turn it around with this is a difficult game. A lot of people thought draw or Newcastle win, and they've ended up winning with a clean sheet. So, yeah.
I think to win at St James's Park is an incredible result now.
I think Newcastle prior to that had only lost one game in 2 years there or something like that.
Liverpool were the only other team won there this season. I want to say Liverpool were the last team to win there before that as well. Yeah. Also consider for Arsenal the psychological impact of what happened at St James's Park last season as well. And the way the game started, like Jacob Murphy hit the post after about a minute, you think, oh, hello. And Arsenal had to weather some very aggressive football. And I felt when Arsenal lost the ball higher, they were in trouble early on. But once they got through, sometimes you go somewhere like that and you've just got to get through that opening period. And then once they did it, they settled down and then they began to create their own odd chance or two and they grew into it. The goal has a little bit of a fortuitous nature about it. It's obviously a very good strike from Odegaard. But Pope doesn't see it because he thinks Cher's going to kick the ball and therefore goes down very, very late. But I thought Arsenal, on the whole, probably deserved the victory, actually. They had some good moments themselves in the second half on the counter-attack. I thought Martinelli carried the game really well for Arsenal at important moments. Was more of a threat than Saka, in my opinion. And Jorginho played really well in the central midfield role. And I know a lot of Arsenal fans were quite worried about that selection because the intensity of Newcastle. I think if Newcastle had scored early in that period, people might have had a very different narrative on their reflection on that afterwards. But he did quite well. I thought Kivior defended pretty well at centre-back. Was obviously involved in a big moment early in the game when a penalty was given. It was obviously correctly decided that obviously hit his shorts first and couldn't be a penalty. But a big result for Arsenal. You go somewhere like that and it's win, and I think most neutrals probably didn't think that they would at the weekend. That includes myself very openly, because you can just get swallowed at Newcastle. It's begun to have that feel about it a little bit like Anfield, that because of the atmosphere and stuff, you can just get swallowed up there no matter what sort of form you're in and stuff. So a really big result for Arsenal that keeps Manchester City really honest. And I think there's an impact to City going forward now that's relevant for FPL in the sense that they know that this Arsenal's not going to go away. City will think that if Arsenal beat Brighton on Sunday, which I'm going to guess most of us after what we watched yesterday now think will happen, that Arsenal will win their last 3 games. And that's going to put pressure on City. Where
for sure.
Sure, they can afford a mistake in their last 4, but they can't afford 2.
And it's the same for Newcastle. I mean, losing keeps them honest. Like Liverpool, albeit they've got a game in hand over Liverpool, there's only 3 points in it now. Top 4 for them is not safe.
For Newcastle?
Yeah. They've got fixtures that they can and should win, but it's not safe. They've got to keep playing.
Yeah, I think there's probably too much attacking power in that team now to not think that they'll get, 2 wins probably they need Newcastle?
They need 2 more.
Still got to play Leeds, still got to play Leicester.
Yeah, their fixtures are good, and they can. I feel they will, but they got to stay honest now for the next couple of games. They can't just expect to. Just show up.
Newcastle did not play that game on Sunday like a team that thought they had top 4 wrapped up or anything. I think with them as well, obviously respect, it's been 20 odd years since they've been in the Champions League, so nobody's thinking the job's done. And I'm sure there'll be some pessimistic Newcastle fans who, despite how brilliant they've been this year, will be fearing the worst now. I think they'll be okay. I'd be more concerned about United than as in Manchester United than Newcastle.
Segue.
Yeah, I suppose we spoke about Newcastle enough at the start, didn't we?
Yeah. West Ham United 1, Manchester United 0. Yeah. I think I've found
you were
West
there,
Ham
boss.
Now that I can tell what's going to happen in the first 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Like the way we start a game generally dictates how the game's going to go. If we're sloppy, give the ball away and the opposition have a couple of chances, then it's going to be a long afternoon. If we start high tempo, then the game generally goes that way as well. And we started really well for the first 3 or 4 minutes. United then did get control for 10 minutes, but we started the game really well. We had the opening 2-3 minutes passage of play. When I saw the team and I saw Kehrer at right back, you know what was going through my mind?
Rashford's going to tear him apart.
Completely. It's like, this is going to be a problem. Rashford versus Kehrer.
I thought he played quite well, actually.
Kehrer, he had a great game, but I'll tell you why. Because for 60 minutes, Rashford played in the middle and Bruno played on the left. And that largely made Bruno completely ineffective in the game. He was standing out there, holding the touchline, waiting for the ball to come to him. wouldn't come out to him. If it would, he wasn't going to ever take care out on the outside or try and burn him for pace. So it ends up drifting in. Rashford, who just cut out the space and ended up, they just didn't have any ideas, did Manchester United. They could control the ball reasonably well, but there was no space and there was no threat or penetration in behind or anything like that. All of the chances that they had.
Did you just laugh because he said penetration?
Fucking, this is a mental note. Stop employing people under the age of 25. Fuck it. No.
For the benefit of the audio listeners, Nico just kind of laughed within himself because Suj said penetration. Yeah. You immature boy.
If you look at the highlights, like it looks like they had quite a few shots in and around the edge of the box, United, but there wasn't anything, like they're a good team and they've got players that can hit a ball. So you don't ever want to let them just keep having chances. But they never really were creating and carving us open chance after chance. Whereas on the other end, we played the better football. Antonio had the game of his life. I think Lindelof, you're talking about buying him for FPL, he probably hasn't slept for 2 days because he's having nightmares about Antonio. And against Luke Shaw, he did really well. This was a well-deserved 1-0 that should have been 2-0. It was the most stressful a second half has been when we're winning a game and playing better. Why is that, James? Why did I have a stressful second half when we're winning and playing better than them?
Yeah, are you going to tell me the answer, or are you asking my opinion? Because I can
Because
tell you.
at any moment they've got the quality to get it back. We needed the second goal to ease the pressure.
You go through moments like that as a fan. I compare to, say, when Kane scored the goal against City to break Tottenham's goal scoring record, and you know you've deserved to win this. And it'd be heartbreaking if you don't.
Yeah, yeah, completely. And the two big chances that the two goals that were ruled out, offside and the foul. I haven't seen a replay of the foul on the
Antonio.
Yeah,
it's foul.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, but you absolutely should have had a penalty in the first half. By the way,
Lindelof was a penalty.
Jesus.
So the XG doesn't get counted on those chances because obviously they end up being fouls, right? On the two disallowed goals for offside and whatever, but we carved them open to create the opportunities.
Oh, you well deserved to win.
Football was fantastic, like a really, really enjoyable game where 1 to 11's played at their best. Everyone's put in a shift. Paqueta's the difference in the last 2 months, so for West Ham, he
I really like him. Such
really stepped up. He's got the skill on the ball with the fight and aggression to want to win it and tackle. Like I really do like him. So. Good. United, I think they just they fucked up in the attacking third, really. With Bruno stranded out left, Anthony, I don't know, like I was worried about Anthony versus Creswell, but Creswell didn't have two. There's one point where he knocked it past him and skinned him, but Declan Rice was running with him.
Fight Club round 3, right? I reckon in the summer we should pick an 11 of Premier League players you'd most like to give a slap.
Yeah.
I reckon there's a couple of Manchester United contenders here, isn't there? Anthony and Bruno Fernandes both go in that team, don't they?
Yeah.
And I'd admit my own Richarlison goes into that team, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Let us know your team of players that most need a slap. I wasn't surprised that Weghorst played. And I think a lot of that is your aerial threat, right? I thought it was a game that Weghorst would play as much about set pieces as open play.
Well, we just scored 3 from corners in the previous game,
but
I can understand that.
I just don't understand why you wouldn't just play that Weghorst 9, Rashford left and Fernandes at 10.
I don't know. And the other thing is, like, when we
had the logical
corners,
without Weghorst is nobody's number 10. I don't know what that is.
Attacking corners, we're 1-0 up. In the second half, they had 10 men in the box defending corners. So they had no outball, even if they were to clear it from a set piece.
Yeah, but most do that now.
That's worried about set pieces all of a sudden. But you've got afterburners on Anthony or Rashford. They would skin our centre-backs.
Yeah, but a lot of that is with defending with everybody back is then if you can break the line of press on the edge of the box, you get circumstances like Liverpool against United and Liverpool against Everton where you can get man advantages where you just fly forward. It's easier to run 80 yards at pace if you're attacking rather than defending. That's part of the theory. So I'm not surprised they defended with the majority of players back. Just a bit underwhelming, United. And actually in the second half, it looked way more likely that you would go 2-0 rather than they would equalise.
Every attack, we were like, let's go for it. We kept nicking the ball, but like Eriksen and Casemiro were weak, and Paqueta and Rice just kept taking the ball off them or closing them down. Even Ben Rama chipping in. They were weak. Like, they haven't become bad players overnight, but they had a bad game, both of them. And our midfield was where we dominated them.
Yeah, Casemiro was underwhelming.
Yeah,
to be totally, and he's been brilliant the majority of the season. It was underwhelming. I agree. Paqueta, Rice. I thought Ben Rama offered a good outlet for you a lot. They often looked like you looked for him quite quickly to the left-hand side. Really good performance, actually.
Where's it been all season? That form, we can beat anybody.
We must cover the elephant in the room of the goal, though.
Why?
I mean, the weird goal, right? It's the sort of one that questions morals of football, doesn't it? You can't explain how he doesn't save it.
It was a shit shot, and when Ben Rama hit the shot, I was like, my instant reaction, because I was sitting next to a mate, was just, and then it goes in. It was literally, I was like, oh, that's shit.
Can I tell you something honestly?
Yeah.
All three of us here, I include Nico, all three of us saved that.
Yeah. When he hit the shot, I thought...
I wouldn't even be diving. I'd be taking 2 steps to my right and controlling the thing with my foot.
Yeah. It was poor. Completely poor. But regardless, we deserved to win, and we could have easily won 2 or 3.
He is, De Gea, now becoming a real problem for United. And I know people are getting frustrated because Ten Hag keeps saying, we want him to sign a new contract and playing lip service and all that. Listen, this is his player. He's obviously going to defend him and do all those things. But he's given them problems with distribution, which I think he's worked really hard to try and improve that in his game this year. And I mean, he's done quite well, but there's a level of elite distribution of goalkeepers that he's never going to get near. He is still capable of the absolute brilliant. It was only Thursday night at Brighton, he's pulled off a couple of worldies there.
Shot stopping's decent.
These mistakes are creeping in now and again. They are. There's literally no goalkeeper could not save that shot from Ben Rama. It's ridiculous. It's one of them where I'm sure there's people listening who the shot happened and they looked at their phone or something and then were in shock.
I was like, just looked away and I'm like, it's gone in.
You think it must have taken a bubble or something. Like, I don't even know. It's like he's tried to tip it round. I don't even know where he's trying to tip it round the post. It's not like there's anyone coming in to pressure on a follow-up or anything. There's no explanation for that. And I try and defend goalkeepers. I can't defend that one.
No.
Strange.
Atmosphere was buzzing, which means now West Ham going into Thursday is going to be really good atmosphere.
Luck. Enjoy it.
And yeah, we're all sight set on this now. But it was just nice to see the team that we know. You know, all you want, like you say, is to feel. And it felt like that sunny Sunday. Everyone's been in the pub all afternoon. You're up for it. You got United at home. It's one of them.
You've been out celebrating with Arsenal fans, weirdly.
Well, I don't feel celebrating. I was sitting in the beer garden drinking a Guinness.
Guinness?
0-0, yeah.
Didn't know you liked the stuff.
I'm trying to buy Sheffield United. On we go. That's a pod for another pod. That's a right
dozy, that is, mate.
Oh, mate. Let's talk about these Sunday games because we said we were going to skim through the games and we've been chatting for a while, mate. Fulham 5, Leicester 3. James Maddison getting a few pelters for what he said after the game, but I think he's right.
What did he say? I've not heard it.
He said that they weren't hungry enough, Leicester, and everyone's criticised him because what they assumed he meant was that they weren't putting in the effort. He didn't mean that they weren't putting in the effort. He just said they weren't aggressive and on the front foot in the game and with a high press. But they did put effort in. They just played shit.
This team cannot stop conceding goals.
Yeah. And their fixtures, like, for me now, the bottom 3 are the ones that are likely to go down. Just because Leicester and Leeds' fixtures are shit.
I'm trying to work out in my mind how they keep out Liverpool and Newcastle in the next 2. How?
How do they keep us out? Antonio versus Wout Fass.
Listen, if they lose the next 2, it probably won't matter. By then it'll be finished, probably. So, they've arguably got to beat Liverpool on Monday night. And they can, by the way. Let's remember that a very heavily understrength Leicester beat Liverpool 1-0 last season. They actually performed quite well at Liverpool in the Christmas period. Remember the Wout Fass 2 own goals? Actually played quite well that night. So there is something there. They just need to find what it is. But I think when you look at that team in comparison to Forest, Leeds, Everton, I think it's completely unacceptable the position that they're in. When you look at the attacking talent in that team, to know that there's no Ian Asho yesterday, they've still got Vardy, Barnes, Maddison. You've got Tielemans in midfield.
Yeah, Tielemans, we're talking about 50, 60 million pound midfielder last summer. Like, he's been a shadow.
How many goals have Leicester scored this season in the Premier League?
Oh, that's a very good question. Let me find out. It's not many.
I bet I'm sure I saw this morning Blackpool 55, I think, is the record for goals scored for a relegated team. They're going to get near that, I think, if not beat it.
Tells me the goal difference is minus 15. But it doesn't tell me goals scored. I'll find out for you, mate. But yeah.
Useless. And I'm reflecting on it this morning and thinking, in all honesty, if they'd have bought a goalkeeper, would they be in this position?
49 so far.
They've scored 49, so we've got 3 left.
They won't get there, but they'll go close.
Yeah, they probably won't get there. They'll probably need to get there, by the way, to stay up.
Bad. I mean, they've scored 49. Southampton scored 31. West Ham 38. Bournemouth 37. Nottingham Forest 34. Everton 32. They've scored anywhere between 10 to 15 goals more than everyone.
There'll be teams in the top half that scored more than.
Wolves 30. Palace 35. Actually, you don't,
the whole bottom half.
Not until you get to Fulham.
Yeah.
Yeah, they scored more goals than everyone in the bottom half.
So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand why they're in trouble, right? Because actually, offensively, in the final third, they're a top half team, aren't they? Think back to what I said when they beat my team 4-1 back in February. You're like, this is fake. They went 13th that day. And the comment I said on the podcast on the Monday afterwards was, Leicester's position in 13th might be the most fake in this league, because when they get it right offensively, a top half team. So the fact that they're down there is purely based on the defensive woes, which, by the way, that's through, if Maddison's saying didn't press properly from the front, listen, you attack as a team, you defend as a team. Defensively, they're woeful. But I can't help thinking if they'd have had a competent goalkeeper this season, they'd be out of trouble. That said, you reflect even on the draw with Everton last week, and Everton was arguably man of the match. It's not just a criticism.
It's funny.
It's not just a criticism of him.
He said, don't worry, he's on your bench. You'll keep him in the team. He's just gone and shipped 5.
That he won't come out because Ward's no better. But
that's true.
How many times this season of they've been in a position where you've looked at them, like the first goal yesterday, and you think, he's got to deal with that better. And listen, there'll be better goalkeepers than him get caught out on moments like that. But I think he sees it coming from a long way and reacts really late on. And he doesn't inspire that he's going to save things. I feel like his performance against Everton last week felt more like a one-off rather than he's that much better than Danny Ward. Yeah. And I'm probably sure he does stay in the team. But this is the point. And Fass and Siunchu, which is what Dean Smith's gone with, it's fine. Siunchu, we hardly saw under Brendan Rodgers. He's come back in. I think the two of them, both individually, are probably quite competent centre-backs. I think together as a partnership, they're a big problem. He's changed it about where Thomas played against Everton, he wasn't good. Christensen played yesterday, apparently wasn't good. Castagne plays at right back. What do we think of him when we think of Castagne?
Attacking.
We think he's good offensively. I think that Everton result yesterday was disastrous for Leicester specifically.
Fulham done all right. Mitrovic is back from next week.
We have to say they did not play like a team that was on the beach yesterday.
Yeah. I think you have to add the opponents into the decision around that. Like, they played Leicester, who are shit, playing shit. But any thoughts? Like, Mitrovic, he's had a rest now, self-inflicted.
But it'd be a lot of people wanting to buy Wilson or Isak this week. Are you going to pick Mitrovic over it?
It's punty.
Can we even guarantee that he starts?
I don't know. But
Vinicius has got 2 and 3.
And he's ready to go. I think Mitrovic does come back in.
He doesn't have match fitness.
I think he does come back in.
I'm sure that he probably does. I agree. That would arguably be a little bit harsh on Vinicius, maybe. I'm sure Fulham fans would largely say, yeah, Mitrovic will play, don't have concerns. I think to buy a player, my experience of buying players when they've been out for a while never works.
It's fair.
But I'd certainly understand. You look at the next couple and go, Southampton away, Palace at home. Yeah, fine. Could you punt it? Yeah, sure. But is it better than even the 90 minutes out of Isak Wilson this week against Leeds and Brighton, and then they've got Leicester at home in 37? I don't know. You could pick Mitrovic over Either of those two. Unless you was already locked into your 3 Newcastle. Would be the only, but then even take what I said about Tony at home to West Ham, Watkins at home to Tottenham. I ain't said even if I had 3 Newcastle and 3 Brighton already in luxury, would I sell either of those two for Mitrovic this week? No, I'd just probably get my Manchester United or Manchester City player in place for 37 rather than do that. Is he a differential you could go and punt? Yeah. I'd rather people win and punted Harry Wilson, who's the one we keep saying every week at the moment.
He's done well.
I know Kenny and William both scored twice yesterday, but what I saw of the game last night, which was limited, the pockets of space Wilson's picking up is really, really interesting. And he's very good in terms of being a dead ball specialist as well.
He's good on the ball.
I think he's the one, if you wanted to punt it. We said Harry Wilson last week. It's probably incorrect. I'd still say Harry Wilson this week. But how do you make room for it? You don't. Fulham, I also think, obviously, conceded some shoddy goals in the second half. I think they'll concede goals over these games with what's left, with no Tim Ream playing as well.
James.
Yes.
If your team played a game of football and I told you that I'm going to guarantee you 78% of the ball,
I'd say Brighton.
645, 57 passes. I'm going to give you 5 big chances, James. I'm going to let you take 23 shots and I'm going to give you an XG of over 3. How much are you going to win by?
They still have over 3.
How much are you going to win by?
How
much are you going to win by?
You have to say again that at 4-0, Brighton were under it, right? Though a lot of them chances would come really late on, where Everton are just defending the penalty area and stuff,
Understood.
Right?
But it's not a 5-1.
You would.
It's not a 5-1 defeat, mate.
They went in 3-0 down, and I promise you, if they'd went in 4-0 down, they couldn't have complained. Because Everton should have made it 4-0 right on half time.
And I didn't get. I only saw
how many big chances did Everton have?
4, and they scored 3 of them. They had 6 shots on target. 5 shots on target, 5 goals. But I feel like this was one where, from everything that I could see, is Everton were able to nick the ball from Brighton in between that centre-backs and midfield and then counter on them. And normally it doesn't happen. They'll play through you and then you're on the back foot looking behind you. But every time they nicked it, it was a goal. And suddenly you're like, okay, cool. This is how you can play against Brighton. You can try. Other teams will try and do that and have no luck whatsoever and actually could end up 2 or 3-0 down the opposite way. This was one where it all worked out serendipitously for Everton. Don't get me wrong, they were trying to do it. But you can try and do it and still have your arse handed to you.
I will be watching this game back again.
We're talking tactics.
I will be doing it because I need to. Well, I think I understand, but I want to watch back certain aspects. I think primarily what happened in terms, because we have to ask ourselves, why has this happened, right? That result happens for a reason. And primarily, we have to say Sean Dyche masterclass. Whether people like, negative football. No, listen, there's a strategy there and it's worked.
Nick the ball back and
go. And part exposed them as well. So, a couple of key things, I think. One, Brighton couldn't cope with the direct running. I tweeted this quite early in the game. They couldn't cope with the direct running, particularly of Iwobi and obviously Dwight McNeil, who ended up having a worldie by the end. And obviously Abdullah Doucouré supporting that from midfield as well. 3 powerful players, okay, who, in terms of running stride, both on and off the ball, can get up the pitch really quickly. Iwobi works his nuts, right? We've been very critical of him over the years. He works really hard. Dwight McNeil, very strangely, had an awful season at Burnley last year. It looks completely revitalised. He's a player prior to last season we really liked. His work ethic, I think back even to, it was some mad stats when they played at Leeds, I think in game week 5. It was like most pressures off the ball or stuff for a couple of years or something. Really works hard. And Doucouré as a player was barely used under Frank Lampard. And it always feels, over the last few years, when Everton have had good spells of results, he's always feel like he's been in a position where he can go and support a front player. Now, of course, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, as spoke about last week, I said he looked fresh, fit and hungry at Leicester, and he did again yesterday. Now, suddenly, if you've got those 4 coming at you, suddenly Everton don't sound that boring. They sound offensively strong. Nothing like sexy from the fullbacks. Patterson and Mikalenko, 2 fullbacks who arguably would like to get up and support. Nothing sexy. Nothing too ambitious from certainly Idrissa Gueye. Joe Garner, I thought, had a really good game yesterday. Good player. did a lot in terms of link play at important moments when Everton did, and obviously didn't have a lot of the ball, but at key moments contributed really well. And Yerry Mina in at centre-back is one that I certainly know Sean Norton, our Everton correspondent, will be delighted about, because the lingering feeling of why is Michael Keane continuing to play was beginning to get asked over and over again by Everton fans. Mina's problem is he can never stay fit, right? So you couldn't rely on him to stay fit till the end of the season. If he does, I bet he drops a 15-pointer somewhere before this season ends. He's like that. He's good offensively at set plays, Yerry Mina. So suddenly, power all over that team. Nearly all 6-footers, bar a couple in the midfield area. But I think the real problem that Brighton had is they want to manipulate you, right? They want to draw out the press, and then they pop it into the 2 6s, and then one of the forwards drops in, it becomes 2 10s, and it's a lot of play in, third man runs, and then repeat and go on, and they play quite narrow. What I think Brighton didn't do enough was get wide. When Brighton began to have real spells of dominance at the end of the game, probably harsh saying real spells of dominance, was when they were getting 1v1 positions in wide areas and managing to get in the ball in the box. Now, I understand why you wouldn't want to do that against Everton, because you're going up against giants like Mina and Tarkowski, and you think, well, we ain't winning it in there. It was no coincidence that Brighton were better once Evan Ferguson had obviously come in as well. But I think the big problem Brighton had was how narrow Everton went. So defensively, McNeil and Iwobi and their powerful running from deep was because they were very deep. They basically played, when Brighton were in slow possession, in between Everton centre-backs and full-backs. Not quite like an old-school Mourinho back six where they'd end up like as the full-backs themselves. You're basically blocking passes into the 2 10s when they're dropping in. That was the responsibility of the wide players. Very commonly, that would be the responsibility of perhaps your wide midfield players in, say, a 4-3-3. What that meant was that the midfield three could really concentrate on stopping the ball going into the 2 6s and who was playing in there. So Caicedo, McAllister just didn't have the joy that they'd normally have. What really went wrong for Brighton, I feel, was, and Everton targeted this, was what Adam Webster came out with the ball, and he kept coming out. And I'm not surprised he was hurt at half-time, because he kept carrying the ball too much. What he had to do is slow the play, wait for opportunity. Brighton suddenly, for some reason, become rushed, less structured and consistent in their passing. And every time Webster stepped out from the back, it felt like he didn't have a pass on. Everton intercepted it, broke quickly. And because Webster stepped out, and you got the fullbacks pushing on high, you got Gross playing right back, for example, wants to push high, so you can tuck Mitoma and Buonanotte into more central areas. Brighton were losing the ball, and Dunk was 1v1 with Calvert-Lewin so many times in that first half. Crazy. And Lewis Dunk didn't play well either. So a lot of things came together that led to this absolutely wild football result. But honestly, I don't think, you mentioned like the XG and stuff, there wouldn't have been any Brighton fans complaining at that scoreline at half-time. They'd have happily just gone home and scrapped the result and forgot about it. And we've obviously eulogised about Brighton a lot this season. So we talk about them like a top team. So it's only fair that we criticise them in the same way, because if anybody else from the top 7 loses 5-1 at home to Everton, we absolutely destroy them.
Yeah.
And they had a bad day, a really bad day. What I would say, though, is that people tweeting me last night saying, is this the end of Brighton and stuff like that? Like, no, listen, they've been absolutely brilliant. But Everton probably set the best template we've seen so far on how to stop them. I also think it's worth,
the execution.
It's worth saying that Ten Hag kind of did similar things twice and very nearly kept 2 clean sheets against Brighton. So there might be something that's building where, I don't want to say worked out, but people realise that you've got to have a proper system against them. If you don't prepare right and properly and are be prepared to be structured defensively as a team and then react quickly offensively, then you'll get done. Everton got the balance absolutely spot on yesterday, a massive credit to them. And I think we probably all sit here this morning and think that they'll stay up. Calvert-Lewin's been the biggest difference, because I think it's given the rest of the team belief that he can get the returns and stuff.
5 shots on target, 5 goals for Everton. Do you know how many shots on target Nottingham Forest had?
4.
4 and 4 goals. I mean, this is another one.
Kind of had 5 with Felipe's
disallowed
goal, which some celebration, mate. You join the Richarlison Hall of Fame of stupid
He's Brazilian as well, isn't he, Felipe?
I think he is
Brazilian.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe it's in the water. I mean, this could have gone to 4-4 right at the end as well. That would have been a perfect result for us as a West Ham owner, but ends up being with Forest getting the points at home. I watched quite a lot of boxing movies at the weekend. Creed. The series. I wanted to watch Creed 3, so I decided I had to watch Creed 1 and Creed 2 before watching Creed 3. And you know how movies just makes it a slugfest where they just all punch, like one punch. It's not realistic. But again, this is another slugfest. 4-3, more goals, 7 goals. I don't know if it's quite the analogy of they were trading blows, because it feels like Southampton had the better quality. They definitely had higher XG. Again,
at 4-2, Suj, Forest had the higher.
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily the case. Forest have obviously sat on it quite late on. It didn't feel like a 4-3 game. I became a little
9 shots on target, 7 goals. It's not going to...
I also... I think this game in the first half made me realise, probably off the back of watching Tottenham Saturday and hybrid systems as well, that we are absolutely in a phase of football now where if you don't play with almost like a 12th man on the ball, then you're not attacking properly. In the sense that you've obviously got to say, probably primarily Ben Davies played 2 different roles for Tottenham as kind of the 12th man. Left back out the ball, left wing back with the ball. And watching Ainsley Maitland-Niles try and play the Zinchenko role in the first half last night made me realise that this is actually beyond the top teams now in this league. There's a lot of teams now have gone, oh shit, we can play inverted fullbacks and stuff as well. And Ainsley Maitland-Niles, for much of that first half yesterday, tried to do it for Southampton. And actually, it made Southampton, I thought, a really, really interesting watching the first half, where I felt they were probably a little bit harsh to go 3-1 down. But what it meant was Maitland-Niles could tuck in with Romeo Lavia. James Ward-Prowse could play in a higher position. You had Walcott and Stuart Armstrong holding very wide, and Alcaraz could drop off as kind of like a left-sided 10, if you will. They're better off for having Che Adams available up front from as well, so at least he looks capable at that top end of the pitch, although the returns don't often come. He actually found Southampton tactically really, phones ringing, interesting in that first half. But on the counter-attack, they could not deal with Nottingham Forest, and particularly the ball over into the right-hand channel for Brennan Johnson. But I do wonder if the penalty incident hadn't happened where Maitland-Niles fouled Johnson and it went in at 2-1, I wonder if, and I know Southampton scored really early in the second half, but I think Southampton would have started that second half in the same way anyway. And I just wonder if it might have been different. Southampton are going to finish bottom of this league, most likely. They need to win all 3 games to have any chance of staying up, and that's probably still not going to be enough. So they're gone, unfortunately. But I don't ever look at them and think, you're terrible. I think they're bad, right?
But they're bad enough to lose every game.
When I look at them and think, like watching them yesterday at times and going, they've got Lavia sitting behind Ward-Prowse and Alcaraz, and you go, it's a bloody decent midfield 3, that. I think it just gives an indication to the quality level of teams towards the bottom half of the table and how well they're improving. But I think Southampton are going to end up falling adrift because of what's behind that and what's in front of that. They don't score enough goals, and you never feel like they're going to keep clean sheets. Another one, though, I think have really suffered. Talk about importance of roles. Leicester go down, it's going to have a lot to do with the goalkeeping situation. And I think for Southampton, it's the same. So I think Bazzuno, he's every chance he's going to develop into a really good goalkeeper. He's been taken out the firing line very recently because they've not kept enough clean sheets. I spoke game week 1 when they lost at Tottenham. I say, looks small in goal, unfortunately. And he probably will develop into a good goalkeeper. I think his distribution's decent and stuff. But when you're playing for a team who's going to face a lot on target, you need to save a lot of it. And Alex McCarthy's not better. It's just the same problem repeated, basically. We might have been better off sticking with Bazzuno. I understand why they changed it, but it's not made them any better defensively. And Southampton are probably going to finish bottom because they can't defend and they don't score enough goals, despite the fact when actually the ball's in the middle of the pitch, you've got a few players there who can really play. And it also would have been benefited, of course, if Lavia had been fit all season as well. I saw a stat this morning that they got 12 points under Ralph Hasenhüttl in 14 games. They've got 12 points in 20 since. Under
Would it
Jones
have been
and
better?
Sellers.
That's always a question that's going to get asked when we get to the end of the season.
We understand why people change, but Southampton and Leeds particularly would have been better off probably sticking. And Forest, if they end up staying up, are going to obviously be delighted that they've stuck as well. Everton made the right change in Sean Dyche. We said at the time, no matter what happened to them, he was going to give them a chance because they would not have stayed up, I think, with almost anybody else, Everton, because they were shot and done. Leicester arguably should have changed a lot earlier to change that on its head. But, yeah, I feel bad for Southampton. I don't think they're terrible. Like, I didn't watch them last night. I think you are by far the worst team in this league. Yeah. Almost kind of willing them to get something. I'm happy for our Forest followers and stuff that they look like they're probably going to get out of it now, actually. But, yeah, I wanted Southampton to make it quite interesting. Those midfield players will get really looked at. Ward-Prowse, Lavia and Alcaraz are not going to play for Southampton in the Championship next year.
Agreed. Cool. James, do you want to give everybody a rundown of what we got left for the week? I've been through the Twitter questions and we've dealt with them. It's basically Newcastle and March. That's it. What to do with Solly March and what to do in Newcastle. And we've been through enough on the FPL side on those where people now need to kind of make their decisions on what they're going to do.
Best free Newcastle this week, in my opinion, say if you were free hitting. I still think Trips. And I think it's Isak and Wilson.
Agreed.
I think for Joel Linton and Willock to be particularly interesting, I think we need some positive news on Longstaff. I think for Brighton, where we're going free this week, I would go Matoma, McAllister, and then Sisso. I'd go with the attacking guys. I struggled to see a clean sheet in those two games for them.
Cool. So, what do people have to look forward to for the rest of the week, mate?
Sky Fantasy tomorrow.
Lovely jubbly.
Double clash of the correspondents where you can get the Newcastle and Brighton view ahead of double game week 36 with Simon Bibby and Sam Murray. Newcastle versus Brighton Thursday. And there's bonus COTC Friday as well, which is going to be don't bench your Liverpool players. Leicester versus Liverpool with Aaron Lagor and Dan Lord. No deadline stream on Saturday because I am going to Villa Park, despite the fact there's no trains. Thank you, Avanti West Coast. Shout out to my boy Ricky Saunders, who's going to ferry me and my dad from Bedford to Birmingham. Cheers, driving, Ricky. He said as long as we got the Bedford, he'd drive us. Cheers, mate.
Fair play.
I'm going to do a stream Friday night. It'll probably be 5:30ish. I'll put it out as an audio as well late on Friday night. I'll confirm the time later in the week. Patreon pods this week include Q&A today, Tottenham tomorrow, Money in Football on Thursday is on Everton. Obviously, the situation looks a little bit better, but we are going to have a look at, Jesus, what would relegation mean? And I promise you, of those teams down the bottom, Everton are one that can least afford to go down. I will be having, for the advanced tier patrons, well, to be honest with you, they're still going to be in trouble next year as well. For the advanced tier patrons, your extra content this week will include a look back on Brighton Everton on talking tactics and how I think Everton set these traps, basically. And we'll do the differential show on Friday with a Game Week 36 preview as well.
Indeed, there's still good content coming thick and fast. Great content, I should say. So if you want to support the show,
yeah, only
patreon.com/.
Nico laughed at that more than when you said penetration.
He's the one editing it. Is it not great,
yeah,
Nico?
That's why he's like,
great?
How can you only call it good, you bastard?
Yeah. Nah, it's great. So if you want to support the show, patreon.com/Planet FPL is the place to go. We have basic tier, intermediate tier, advanced tier, all of the good stuff that James just mentioned coming out this week, as well as access to our Slack channel and prize leagues and some other stuff as well.
That's it.
That's about it. Stay safe, look after yourselves, and we're back at you this week. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other and play it your way. Cue music, please, man-child.